morning, or good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I hope that you are having a fantastic Sunday. It is great to see you all. Today is our Sunday brunch, all about how to buy online. And this is going to be likely the first of a three-part series. Today, we are going to cover how to buy necklaces, bracelets, rings, and earrings, and make sure they're going to fit you. How many people have had the experience where you've bought something online and it has arrived in your mailbox and it's either been much smaller or much bigger than you expected? Our goal today is to equip everyone with some tips and tricks that will make it easier to purchase online and know that something's going to fit you from the get-go. So hopefully that's going to be helpful. It should be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Good morning, Gina. Hello, Jack. Hi, Carol and Janta. It is great to see you all. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. Now, I do want to make sure that everybody gets in on the giveaway. So I'm going to put the banner up. Please enter #win, all caps, for your chance to win a Sunday Brunch exclusive mug. And this will be shipped to you at no cost if you are the winner. It is a 20-ounce mug and a lot of fun to drink your coffee or any other beverage out. Please kindly help each other with making sure that you get that #win, all caps, in, so that everybody gets a chance. And if you've already won a mug, you will have the opportunity to either have me draw again, or I can do something special to it so that it's a little bit more unique than the mug you may already have. Hello, Jewelry Junkie, Kathleen, Delia. It is wonderful to see you all. I'm excited to continue this jewelry journey with you today, and we are going to talk all about sizes. And first, I do want to say a special shout out and thank you to our two newest patrons. We've got actually three, Kathy, Kathleen, and Vicky, that have all joined us. Hey, Purple Rain, great to see you. The Patron and Extra Scoop Club is a special offering that we have on Sunday Baubles for people who would like to kind of deepen their knowledge a little bit more. What it is a club that you can join. There's two ways. One is through the join button on YouTube, and this will give you a little badge by your name, as well as access to our Extra Scoop live events, which are basically antique roadshow style videos where I take a look at your pieces, I give you information and research on them, and also give you a comparable retail value. And then I also have 3 different Patreon options. The first one is the same as the YouTube. The 2 Scoop gets you some identification support on 2 items per month, and 3 Scoop does as well. And so with those extra scoops on the Patreon, you're able to email me pictures and I will take a look and I will send some info and we can kind of collaborate back and forth. It is wonderful to see you all. Thank you for entering the giveaway. I'm going to pull down the banner as we get started, but please do kindly help remind each other how to enter so that nobody misses out. And we will do the draw after we complete some of the information portion today. So I'm going to do my best to keep up with comments. Today is a lot of fun, and we are going to try to keep this dynamic, and I'm going to give you some really practical tips to make sure that things are going to fit you or your loved ones that you may want to gift. And it is all about online shopping. So the first tip that we're going to talk about is actually not specific to jewelry. It is specific to any jewelry with beads. So here is a bead chart. And the reason why I want to present this to you today is that beads can actually have an impact on the fit of things. Now, typically, earrings are about 6 to 8 millimeters when you think about a round ball. A large pearl is about 8 millimeters, and a standard pearl is about 6.5 millimeters on a smaller necklace. Now, the larger a bead is going to be, the more space it takes up. So that means that if you've got a bracelet on, for example, it's going to fit smaller the bigger that it is. And it's the same as a necklace. So if you've got a Wilma Flintstone style pearl necklace on, then what that's going to do is give it a tighter fit on the neck. The other thing that's important to recognize too is that, like with stones, when you talk about anything that has a diameter, it is going to look significantly bigger even as it increases by a mere millimeter. So a 14 millimeter piece of jewelry is going to be significantly bigger than something that is 6 or 7 millimeters. It sounds like it should be double, but if you take a look at the chart, you will see that that is really not the case. If you compare 14 to 7, because we're talking about diameters, there's a very significant difference between it. So, the importance of this first tip is to make sure that you know to look at the size of the beads or stones on any piece that you're looking at. And keep that in mind when you're thinking about fit. We're about to go into necklaces, and we're going to talk about how to measure the neck and choose a fit that's appropriate for you, thinking about your body type, the clothing that you wear as well. And so keep this little tip in mind when we think about beads. Now, one good tip that you can use is that graduated necklaces do give us a little bit more freedom. So if we think about a necklace that has smaller beads on the outside, culminating with the largest in the middle, that is going to have a more V-neck style fit. Here's an example. So they're graduated very subtly. Whereas if you look at something that is all the same length, you are going to want a longer strand most likely, and an even longer strand if it's going to be a big necklace. So that is the segue into our necklace portion. Hello, Deborah. Hello, Jane. Great to see you. So necklaces, they have been worn for centuries, and they have been short and long, and it's changed with styles through the ages. We have everything from collars, which are very, very short, as short as 14 inches, chokers that are 16, the princess length that is 18, matinee, which is 20 to about 24, opera, which is 30, rope, which is 33, and then flapper, which is really anything longer than rope, and some people do include flapper in rope as well. There is no wrong time or place to wear any of these necklaces, but it is good to understand exactly where it's going to fit on your body. And so when you're reading online listings, it's important to pay close attention. And I'm going to give you some tips now on how to ensure that you've got a proper fit for yourself. So first and foremost, a measuring tape can be very, very helpful, but if you don't have one, you can absolutely use a piece of string. And so to find your size, the first step is going to be to measure around the neck. If you, again, don't have a measuring tape, you can simply take a thin piece of paper, or you can take a piece of string, wrap it right around your collar, and then you can put that against a ruler or a one of those like metal retractable measuring tapes, and it will tell you the size. So let's do this as a practical exercise. When you are measuring, you will want to make sure that you measure nicely around the center. Don't pull it too tight. This is not a vanity game where we want to get things as tight as possible, but just measure your neck. And this is to give you an idea of where your neck's going to be. So I'm going to pull this off now, and I see that I'm at 13.5 inches. So I probably don't want to be buying things that are 13.5 inches, otherwise they will be quite tight and high on my neck. So there is a bit of formula that we're going to share to help people find the right size for them. Now, it is great to have a measuring tape because when you look at different pieces online and you see, okay, it's 18 inches in length, you can also wrap that around you and say, this is where it's going to hit. Pull your hair out. It's always best to have just a t-shirt on or something very simple so there's not too many collars to get in your way. But that is one way of knowing. So once you have your measurement, in order to get the basic necklace size, or length, I should say, that is going to look best on you, and this is going to be for chain styles or relatively thin styles, what you want to do is add 2 inches for a collar. And again, a collar is the necklace that sits high up on the neck, and then add 4 inches for a choker. So what that looks like for me would be a minimum of 15.5 for a collar, and for a choker, I would want at least 17.5. And that actually falls very much in line with the lengths of necklaces that I find work best on me. So give that a go and compare it to some of your favorite necklaces, and you may see if that works. Now, choosing a necklace, again, you have to consider what do you normally wear so that you get a lot of use out of it. So for me, this keyhole shirt that I have on today is a little bit unusual, but it showcases pendants very well. And as you all know, I am a pendant lover. You've seen one or two of my Victorian lockets, and we are going to look at them today when we talk about scale. But we do need to think a little bit about neckline and what works best with each. So here is a quick screenshot of a variety of typical and slightly less typical necklines. From high neck all the way to sweetheart, there's options for everyone, and there's a time and a place for all different necklines. It can be for a fancy dinner, it could be for simply going to work in a day-to-day style. Different necklaces work differently. Now, when you've got a high neck, this is an opportunity to wear something that is going to be a little bit longer, and we will talk about pendants as well. But having a slightly longer necklace than a collar will actually allow you to really showcase the length of your neck, and it elongates the neck. So that is the tip. For a Sabrina type neck, you have a couple of options. You can either elongate that neckline, or you can wear a necklace that is higher up on the neck. So depending on what you want to draw attention to, if you want to make yourself look tall, if you're standing and going to a party, then wear something that elongates your neck. If you're going to be on Zoom calls all day, or people are going to be sitting with you at dinner and you want something that's going to show off your face and really highlight your eyes, go with something that is a little bit higher up. V-necks have the same criteria here. Again, a graduated necklace works very well on a V-neck. If you do want to have a pendant, it makes sense to have something that's a little bit higher up so the pendant sits above the V. And again, the longer it is, the more it will elongate the body. The higher up to the face, the more it will showcase your features. For a scoop neck, you want to think about having something that echoes the pattern and that's a little bit higher up on the neck. And that's to make sure that it doesn't get buried into the scoop of the shirt. I'm not sure if you've had this experience where your necklace lands in your cleavage, but that's, well, maybe depending on the type of event you're going to, what you're going for. But if it's not, focus on having something that's a little higher up. Queen Anne is the same, but the Queen Anne necklace or neckline is a little bit tricky because the cut does come up quite high and close in on the neck. So here the tip is that you want to have something that has a pendant that's going to allow it to center into the neckline, and that will showcase the best of both worlds. When in doubt, you can also wear something that is high up on the neck, and some fashion advisors also say that with the Queen Anne necklace, neckline, depending on how much beading you may have on the gown, simply go with a pair of earrings. The keyhole is something that you generally would want to have something that is higher than the keyhole, or if it's open like the neckline I have on, you can have something land right in between. But the key is to think about the distance between the neck and the features. So the higher the neckline, the more likely that you may just want to transition and choose earrings. And finally, for our semi-sweetheart and sweetheart, this is where, again, you can have a neckline or a necklace that has a bit of a drop, but it should finish above the dress, or one that sits higher up on the neck, allowing you to really frame your features. So there's a lot of different choices based on the clothes that you're going to be wearing and the look that you're going for. Hello, Antique Agenda, Jake Garr, Crystal Kelly. It is lovely to see you all. Hello, Catherine. It's great to see you. Deborah, the flapper necklace. What does that work with? Well, it works extremely well with dresses or long shirts, and I find that it also works well with a shirt that can be shorter with a blazer so that it kind of hangs and elongates, and you can also layer it. But the benefit of the flapper necklace is that it really draws attention to your height, and it can be very, very slimming by breaking up the silhouette as well. And we are going to talk about height right now. So height can influence how you choose your necklace. What they say is that people that are taller than 5'4" can go with any length. It suits them well. For people that are shorter than 5'4", if you're trying to draw attention to the face, they recommend 16 to 20 inches. Now, I am 5'3", and I do love me a like 30 or 40 or 54-inch strand. Sometimes I double up, sometimes I don't, but it is a lot of fun to layer them. So please remember, these are not fashion rules. They are just guidelines and tips that others have come up with. And rules are meant to be broken. So the key is what feels good and looks good on you. Never let someone else's rules define you. Exactly, Jewelry Junkie. It is a lot of fun to layer a lot of pieces. Now, we've talked about necklaces, and really we've talked about what works well for chains as well as strands that are beads. But now we need to talk about pendants and lockets. So, as many of you know, I really love me pendants and lockets, and they work differently with different necklines as well. Exactly, Jane. You do you. That is the key. You got to wear whatever you like because there is no wrong answer. And really just look in the mirror and see how it's impacting the silhouette with the outfit you have on for the day and make your decision from there. Now, for necklines and pendants or lockets, this is where not only are you thinking about where's the necklace going to hit, but where is the pendant going to hit as well. So this is my little cheat sheet, if this is helpful for anybody, to kind of show you what sizes work best and where on the body they can work best. On high necks, again, if you're trying to showcase the face as well as the Sabrina, the square, the queen, and the V-neck, I have positioned the locket or pendant a little bit higher up. And the purpose of this is to really kind of showcase the face and keep it just above the top of the chest. Now, you can also wear something much lower down on a longer strand with a high neck. If you've got a beautiful long gown as well, that could work beautifully. But for me, I love having pendants right here. Now, asymmetrical pendant or necklace looks also work really, really well, and you can do that with any of these necklines. For anything that has a higher neck where you're wearing a high necklace, like a V-neck or a queen Anne or a square, this is where generally I go for a slightly smaller pendant style. So I love big pendants and I love small pendants. And I find that depending on where it's going to land in the collarbone, this will impact my choice. So, for example, this is a very broad part of the body, so it can handle a large pendant if that's something that I want to wear. But I find that if I'm wearing something that's off the shoulders and I'm really showcasing the neck here, something smaller to sit right into the small of the neck usually works best. So that's just my little tip. But when we think about scale, we do need to think about how this works when you're buying online, because it can be really tricky. Now, I'm going to share with you some photos of jewelry that you have seen before, and the way that they're positioned is exactly how they might be positioned in an online listing. Let's take a look. Here we have 4 heart pendants. For fun, just put into the chat, and they're not labeled, but if you want to put cameo or glass, metal, or wood, it is bog oak. Which one do you think is going to be the biggest? Or which one do you think is going to be the smallest? And this is where the importance of understanding measurements and really reading the listings comes into play. Because if you were looking at them all together, you might not know that one is significantly bigger than the next. So for fun, take a little guess and let me know which one you think is going to be the biggest and smallest. And we'll talk about the importance of having a ruler. And this is part of my tips. So when I'm shopping online, I usually keep a ruler next to me. And this allows me to do a little bit of doodling to figure out the size of things. I see some guesses coming in. We've got Catherine saying bog oak and saying glass is smallest. We've got Delia saying glass is the biggest. Well, let's reveal the truth. This is the order in which they sit. And thankfully for me, I did have measurements on all of these before I bought them, because that 13 millimeter baby is indeed a baby. And I'm going to bring it up so that you can see what the difference is between them. These measurements do not include the bail, and I'm just going to remove this to show you. So This is what a 13 millimeter pennant looks like. It is basically like a fingernail size. Works very well high on the neck. But if I had thought that was going to be a large locket similar to the largest bog oak, I would have been sorely mistaken. So the tip here is when buying, always think about scale and always try to mock up, if you need to, what the size of something's going to be. For me, I like to keep a ruler as well as a little pad next to me. And what I'll do is I'll actually model the piece of jewelry. And I'm going to show you an example of this when we get to the ring portion. And maybe this is a tip that will be helpful to help you find out how something's going to fit on your body so that you don't have any disappointment. Hey, Barbara. Hey, Lorraine. It's great to see you all. All right. So next we're going to talk about lockets. As you know, I am a Victorian locket junkie. So here is a small selection from my collection, and I've actually ordered them from smallest to largest here as well. And this is another time that I used the ruler and modeling in order to understand how they were going to fit and what size they were going to be to avoid disappointment. So, for example, this one was listed as being 53 millimeters in height, including bail, 33 millimeters in width. Now, that is a little bit disingenuous because the bail is very, very large. So what I did was I drew this on a piece of paper, and I drew it from top to bottom so that it was from the bail to the bottom piece, and then made sure that my diameter was 33 millimeters across. And that allowed me to do a little bit of math and convert what is the size actually going to be. And the size was 38 millimeters on this. So that allowed me to position it inside my collection and understand how it was going to fit on the neck. And again, as we've talked about with beads and with the diameters of pieces, when they arrive and they're three-dimensional, they always will be a little bit different than what you are expecting. So it's important to look at all of the features of these pieces. I'm going to remove this for a minute. So this is the locket that we're talking about. And then I just want to compare it next to this one, which is the largest. So as you can see, the features on something really make a big difference and can change how it has presence on the body. This one is perfect on a small chain. And as you know, I've got a variety of book chains. This one is large and in charge, and one that I tend to wear a little bit lower on a longer chain. I'm just going to check into the comments. Yes. I think we've all been there. We've bought things that have turned out to be really, really big and things that have turned out to be teeny, teeny. So always keep an eye out on those measurements. And sometimes the price can be an indicator too. So I remember one time I wasn't paying attention at all, and I bought a brooch, and it was a steal of a deal. It was like $20 for a sterling brooch, and I couldn't believe it because it was the same design as this locket. And I'll post something in the community later today so that you can see it. And I couldn't believe what an inexpensive deal it was. And when it arrived, it was like pretty much the size of the tip of my index finger. I was not disappointed, but boy, was I in for a reminder. So always read those listings really, really carefully. Thank you so much, Antique Agenda. I'm so happy that you can be here. So next up, we're going to talk about earrings. And earrings is something that I love, and sometimes I love to hate. And I'm going to share why. Earrings really are special. They can draw a lot of attention to the face and bring your sort of face to life with different colors. But our ears are all unique, and ears are going to have an impact on how an earring is going to fit you, how it's going to hit you. And of course, one of the most important pieces is where specifically on the ear your lobe has been pierced. Now, earring piercings, this is just a very small listing of where your ear can be pierced. But keep in mind that these tips do pertain to any earring piercing. So whether you are thinking about having a earring in your lobe, or if you want something in that snug spot, which is number 6, or the number 1 spot, which is the helix, it's important to understand exactly how much space you have between the piercing and the edge of the ear. because it will change how earrings fit you. This is something I complain about a lot because my ear is pierced smack in the middle of the fattest part of the lobe. So it limits what earrings I'm able to choose from, and it can limit the style in terms of construction and also hoops and the size of the hoop. Yes, some of those ears are hilarious. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with ears is that ears actually have unique shapes to them as well. So there are 4 recognized earlobe shapes, which is the tongue, the triangle, arched, and square. And of course, when your ears are pierced, whether it's done by a doctor or someone in a jewelry store or perhaps even done at home, the position of the hole is going to depend on the type of earlobe shape that you have. Yes, I've become an ear collector. And so here is an example of piercing position and why it matters. So on the left side, we have a piercing marked with a star, kind of where mine is. So smack in the middle of the earlobe. It's a little bit high. I had my ears pierced when I was very young. I was in kindergarten. I can still remember. It was very exciting. And then next to it on the right, we have a piercing that is a little bit lower down. And often people do have their even dual piercings, one that's a little bit lower down, one that's a little bit more left centered. This is indeed the normal spot. There is no abnormal spot really to pierce an ear. This is the normal spot. However, because mine was done when I was so young and it was, clearly my ears would have been a bit smaller and they grow proportionally. And now when I buy earrings, I have to think about where's the pendant going to fall? And if it's a hoop, my ear, because it's also a little bit on the chubby side, lobes can be thin or they can be thick. Sometimes some of the older findings don't close properly. And so what this means is that you really need to think about the size of the earrings and especially size of the hoops or the type of finding. So going back to our example, if this person on the left was to wear a hoop, they would probably want a longer one than the person on the right who has their piercing a little bit lower down. And this is where those tiny snug hoops that are so popular, they're little snuggies, don't always work for me because I actually can't get it to close around my ear. And this is something that I have had to learn over time. And I'm sure that most of you who have your ears pierced also have kind of made peace with knowing a little bit about your ears. Now, this doesn't necessarily impact all of the styles I can wear, and sometimes I do remove things from their findings or elongate them, add a few extra balls. These earrings that I have on today are Victorian and they match the necklace, pendant I should say, and I measured very carefully, and the seller was so patient with me before I purchased them to make sure that it was going to be long enough to land at the bottom of my ear, because I wanted to make sure there was a little bit of swinging room. In the past, I've bought earrings that haven't had a long enough hook. And what happens then is it can stay up and like stick out or remains very static, which it just isn't the look that I'm going for. So that's my tip around ear and just thinking about how the earring is going to fit on your ear. Hello, Robin. Just a reminder to everybody, please make sure that you enter #win for a chance to win the mug that we will be drawing for a little bit later in the show, and it's #win all caps. Now, when we think about the construction of the earrings, we also have to think about how that's going to fit you. And so in this little size chart, and this really is a Jen problem, but it may be a problem for others around you as well. And it's important to think about how these close. So there is a subset of these earring backings or findings that were introduced over time that work better for us who have higher piercings or thicker lobes, and some that work worse. The ones that I've highlighted in red are what I consider the earrings that you need to be really, really careful of before you purchase if your piercing is higher or if you have a thicker lobe. And this is because they close around the ear. So the kidney wires, the omega backs, you do need to be thoughtful. And even the screw backs, while incredibly comfortable, you need to make sure that that little loop that is going to be sitting under your ear has enough length to actually allow it to sit in the middle. So every once in a while, it is possible to find screwbacks that are very, very small. And sometimes those ones which are meant to emulate more of a stud don't work well if your piercing is too high up. And omega backs are the same. So because they are closing around the bottom and you need to have a little bit of extra room, that high piercing and slightly thicker earlobe does not really allow for a lot of room. So that is my tip for thinking about how an earring is going to fit. And of course, it always makes sense to measure too and understand what the width of your earlobe is going to be. Now, another tip for you, and this one I've heard from my mom a lot and from other people who've actually had torn ear holes, is that there is a product now that has been introduced that can help people wear earrings that are larger or heavier than what they might normally be able to wear. And it is the earring stabilizer. So this is an example, and you can find these on Etsy and also on Amazon. And essentially they are like a butterfly back with an enlarged portion. And this portion pushes up and into the ear and allows it to stay put. And if you happen to have a ripped ear hole, what it will do is it will also prevent the earring from sliding through if it is a stud or something on the smaller side. The other thing that you can do is also wear an earring jacket. So if you want to wear a diamond stud or a pearl stud and you're worried that you have a ripped hole and it might slip through, the jacket will allow you to put your earring through it and make sure that it can't pass through from the front instead. So that's just one handy tip in case there's people in your life, maybe it's you, that has been avoiding certain styles because of some damage to the earlobes as well. Yes, they do work wonders. Hey Lupe, great to see you. We are going to move into bracelets next. Oh, but first I'm going to read Robin's comment. Just the opposite. Skinny earlobes and the backs keep a larger stud facing front instead of down. See, there we go. They're fantastic, and they're fairly inexpensive too. You can find them online for usually around $100, sometimes a little bit less in 14 karat gold, and then you can find silver ones as well. You haven't, Antique Agenda. I will post into the community what an earring jacket looks like. But essentially, it looks almost like, think of a muffin cup with a hole in the middle, but it's more flat. So almost like a flat piece, and it has a drilled hole so that you can put any earring that you want through it. So it's kind of a handy dandy little thing that can be worn interchangeably with other earrings too. All right, let's talk about bracelets. Now, bracelets, again, are something that have been long worn and long revered, and there's a couple of important things to note. To find your size, again, you can use a measuring tape, or what you can do is grab a piece of paper, wrap that around your wrist, mark it off, and then measure it with a ruler. And it's important, again, for bracelets as well as for rings to really think about the width as it comes to fits. So in this lovely, beautiful selection of Bakelite, while it looks like many of these bracelets are going to fit similarly, if we look at the butterscotch on the far right next to the green, it is going to fit very differently when it's narrow versus wide. So to give you an idea, I've got a thin bangle on. The thinner something is, the larger a wrist or finger it's going to fit. So I've got two more. I've got a whole bunch of things next to me, but I've got two Victorian bracelets next to me. And these, when you take a look at them in terms of diameter, they are very, very similar. I'm not doing them justice the way I'm holding them. But one is significantly wider than the other. And so when we talk about how a bracelet's going to fit, it's important to think about that width, because this one is going to fit a fair bit more tightly than this thinner one is going to fit. Let's take a look at some photos so that we can talk a little bit more about this in detail. So again, here's that Victorian bracelet. Because it's covering more surface area, when you slide it up onto the wrist, one, you need more sort of clearance around the knuckles to make sure that it's going to go on. Of course, if you use a hinged bracelet, the knuckles may not be the primary concern, but you do want it to fit comfortably. And the thinner something is, again, the more room it will have. And you may have experienced this phenomena with rings as well. The skinnier a ring, the smaller size generally a person can wear. And when you start to move into wider bands, it's the same with bracelets. Because it's taking up more surface area, it needs to be a larger side. Now, the fit and the construction of the bracelets also really matter. And there are some things that you can do to alter your pieces to make sure that they fit you perfectly. So I want to talk a little bit about that. In terms of linked bracelets, and this is an example of a diamond bar bracelet from the Art Deco period by the Wackenheimer company. This one can't be sort of deconstructed or changed very simply. It is beautifully pliable, and I will take this down so that I can show you. But the links are not made so that they can be removed. So it's going to be really important if you buy a linked bracelet like this, that you make sure that it's something that is going to fit. The clasp is also not one that is movable either. So this is one example of something that you need to make sure is going to fit you when you measure it from the get-go. Jewelry Junkie, thank you so much for your thanks. I appreciate it. Now, there are other bracelet types that you can modify and that have a lot more possibility and freedom. And here are 3 examples. Now, keep in mind, if you decide that you're going to be removing links in a bracelet, you will potentially impact the design, but you can potentially get it to fit. In our top left, we have a bracelet that has a sort of hook. And with that, what you would be able to do is add additional links or loops on the end if you wanted to elongate it. You would also, in theory, be able to remove a panel if you wanted to. The next top bracelet on the right, which is the star bracelet, would be the simplest to remove links on. But if you did that, it's important to keep in mind that you would probably also want to redistribute where the stars are located as well. If you wanted to elongate it simply, because of the lobster closure on this, it would be fairly easy for you to also just add a few additional links on the end, just round links. Easy peasy. On the very bottom, this one could also be modified, but what I would say is the easiest way to elongate it would be to add links for your closure to hook into. If you wanted to make it smaller, again, you could remove a panel, but that would be a little bit disappointing, I think, and probably shorten it too much. So this is where, if you really love something, there's usually a way, if it has links in it like this, where you can make it work. But you may have to play operation and find some sort of mid-size links that you would be able to put in. Now, I do want to talk about clamper bracelets, and I wanted to share the clamper bracelet story that I have with this Egypt-inspired Elizabeth Taylor for Avon 1993 bracelet. This bracelet is kind of the holy grail for a lot of people who love the Egyptomania jewelry. They're not that easy to find anymore. When they were initially produced in 1993, they were $75, and this is the catalog. And they came in 2 sizes, small and large, and they were plated with 22 karat gold. And they're beautiful. And in the photo, it's a little bit hard to see, but Elizabeth Taylor is wearing 2 bracelets. Now, the lesson that I learned on this one, and this is very early on in my jewelry journey, is that if someone doesn't provide the measurements on a piece, it's important to ask. I really wanted to find 2 of them and wear them together, and I was successful. And I managed to get my hands on a small and a large. And what I want to show you is that there is a pretty significant difference, even if it's only a few millimeters. So let me share with you the 2 bracelets. Obviously, the large is on the left, the small is on the right. These are really beautifully made, and I'm going to flip through them so that you can see. As we look down through the top, you can see from the diameter, again, it looks like there's a fairly significant difference, but it actually is less than you would think. So on the small, that is about 2 and just over a quarter inches. And on the large, it is at 2.5 inches. So it isn't a really big difference, even though how it manifests in real life is quite significant. So I'm going to try to hold these side by side. This is obviously the larger one, the smaller one. I do like to wear them together. um, so always pay attention to measurements, and if they're not offered, never feel bad to reach out to the seller and ask for details so that you can make sure that they fit. I'm lucky because they both fit me. These are very, very heavy bracelets too. It is worth finding out if you're going to wear a clamper what the weight is, because it can impact you if you're working at a desk job and you're typing a lot during the day. All right. You already saw the sneak peek. We are about to jump into one of my favorite topics, and that is rings. And there is a lot to cover with rings. And hello, Harper. It is great to see you. Yes, they did increase the size proportionally. And what I do love about these is that they were very careful with the attention to detail. And so they are identical. So the seams are identical. They must have had 2 molds for how they did them. Yeah, there. Okay. Moving into rings. So, rings, again, are beautiful. The way that the internet likes to tell you to find your size, and I find it kind of laughable, is to print out a chart and simply take a ring you already own and put it on the chart, and that will tell you the size. Now, I believe that this is a tip that is primarily geared towards men that may be looking for an engagement ring. So they're suggesting you be stealthy and you grab your significant other's ring and simply print it out and try to find which one is the right fit. There are a few better ways to do this. So I'm going to share a few other tips. One of them includes buying a ring sizer tool, which you can get very cheaply, usually for about $2 or $3 on Amazon. And what these look like is a little belt that you would tighten up around the finger. You can also get versions of this online for free that you can print out and then wrap around the finger in question, and it will tell you what the millimeters are and what the size is so that you can determine your ring size. But the catch there is that not all ring sizes are going to fit you in the same way. These 2 rings on my finger right now are the same size, but the buckle ring is significantly wider and absolutely does not fit my ring finger, so I wear it like a meaty ring. But the other ring absolutely does. So when you are choosing a ring and when you're choosing a size for a ring, it's really important to think about which finger do you want to wear it on and what is the width of the band going to be. Again, the skinnier a band is, like this one, which is actually 2.5 sizes smaller than these, the more likely it is going to be able to fit on any finger. It is wild that a ring that is 2.5 sizes smaller fit on every finger on a hand, but that is the way it works. So something to keep in mind for sure. So you can get ring sizers online to print that are in different widths, and this is important if you're choosing a band or a thicker band. And it's also important to think about this if you're buying a ring as a gift for somebody else as well. Ring sizing, when you see it on listings, can come in a variety of different formats. You can see the UK ring size, a US ring size, an EU ring size, and sometimes the millimeters or inch. So it's great to have access to a chart, and I will link this into my notes or the video notes so that you have access to charts, but they're readily found online as well. And it's worth always going slightly bigger when in doubt, because as somebody consumes salt or the weather gets warmer, it is normal for our rings to swell, our fingers to swell a little bit. Yes, And there are metal ring sizers as well. They almost look like a keychain with all sorts of different rings. Mine is in the other room where you can actually size each finger. But just keep in mind with those two, usually they're all the same width. And so you want to make sure that if you are looking for a wider band, you are thinking to go a little bit wider. The other thing too is if you are planning to stack rings together, you also want to have slightly bigger rings because it has that same impact. Hello, Linda. Great to see you. Yes, exactly. Finger spillage is something that can be accounted for based on the ring gallery. So this is where fit and construction of the ring comes into play. And I want to give you a couple of examples. So this is an Art Deco Bombay style ring, and it has a massive undergallery, as you can see. You can fit a lot of finger in there. So this one is going to be significantly more forgiving than a ring with a sort of shorter profile like this, where there's a little bit of an undergallery, but it's a matter of millimeters and not centimeters as well. Amazing, Kathleen. That's exactly it. There is more metal that's required for a wider band. If you want to share any details on that formula, please do. And then rings that have no gallery whatsoever, and this is sometimes found in antique pieces. You can find them in, this is an Art Nouveau ring, but you can find them in Georgian rings as well, where they're completely closed in the back. They are the least forgiving of all. So when you put something on like this, or the buckle ring that I have on as a meaty ring, it's important to make sure that it is going to fit correctly from the get-go. Now, rings can be sized in many cases. And so I want to share with you a few do's and maybe do with caution or don't when it comes to ring sizing. Do's. You can size rings generally 2 to 3 sizes, sometimes a little bit bigger too, depending on what the construction is. If they're very plain, they don't have a lot of stones, and they haven't been sized before, then they are pretty good candidates to be sized. If they have sizing bars in them. So sometimes rings are engraved everywhere except for a section in the back, or it's an eternity, but it has a 2 or 3 or 4 millimeter wide sizing bar in the back. That will allow you to size it more easily. I personally prefer laser welding when it comes to sizing rings because it allows for a very exact fit, and it also concentrates the heat specifically where you want it. And then I do also request that the hallmarks be spared. So if you are having a ring sized, you can ask them to try to avoid the hallmarks. It is possible to size the ring not only in the bottom, but sometimes on the side if there's not decorative pieces or motifs there as well. As for the don'ts, and we're going to look at some examples as well, and I'll explain why you wouldn't want to size these pieces. There are eternity bands that simply are set in a way that sizing them puts the stones at risk for falling out. And so that's a reason why generally when you buy an eternity band, you buy it so that it's going to fit your finger. You don't want to size previously sized rings either. And then for enamel, if you are choosing to size something with enamel, if it has enamel all the way around, it is likely that there's going to be some loss. And finally, tension settings. So these are rings where the stone is held in place by the tension of the metal on it, and we'll take a look at some examples you want to avoid. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to take a look at some of these examples of things that maybe you don't want to size. And we will take a look at my saved gem.app. There we are. So in terms of enamel, here's an example of something that would have damage if you were to size it. As you can see, it has enamel that is going all the way around. And again, it is almost done like a bypass, but there is connectivity between the two. So this one's not a great candidate if you wanted to buy a ring that was going to be sized. Very old antique rings that do have things like pearls, which can be damaged by heat, as well as enamel, are also not great candidates. If you have a jeweler with the ability to use a laser welding tool, they may be able to do it, and they are able to kind of protect these top elements. But again, it's kind of at your own risk. So personally, for delicate antique rings like this, I would choose not to size them. There we go. Tension settings. So here's an example. This could likely be sized, but the stone should be removed and should be sort of reset once it has been properly sized. A true tension setting does not have a bottom like that at all. Let's take a look. We've got another example here. So for these, we've got another example of a type of tension setting that would be difficult to size without putting these stones at risk. So if you did choose to size something like this, it would likely be quite expensive, as they'd have to check the setting of each of the stones when they were done too. And then eternities. So as you can see, there is not a lot of wiggle room to do a sizing on a ring like this. Despite the back looking like it's quite solid and like it could be, these prongs are all set in place to hold the stones. And so sizing really isn't an option unless you were, fully removing a stone, trying to add metal in. And in most cases, it would be a lot more economical simply to find a ring that would fit a little bit better. And the same goes for other stone shape eternity bands as well. So this is another example that you would be better off to have it ordered in your size. And again, I personally don't like to size silver even though it's totally doable, but I find that it can be a little bit more costly than it needs to be. I prefer to save my sizing for my fine jewelry made of gold if I really, really want to have it sized. All right. When were adjustable rings first made popular? So adjustable rings have been in existence for millennia because it was one of the easiest ways to make a ring was to create it so that it essentially was not fully closed. So it could slip onto the finger, it could be sort of stretched or moved and changed. Soldering requires a lot of heat, or the fabrication that would have been used prior to soldering did it as well. But during the Art Deco period and even during the Art Nouveau period, you can find examples of costume rings that are beautiful and totally sizable as well. They allow for some movement. Bypass rings also work well for this. If you aren't sure what to get someone, you can get them one of those bypass rings that essentially cups the finger, or a ring that is open in the back and can simply be slipped on as well. Yes, the arthritic ring shanks are absolutely amazing, and we will definitely do a deep dive on those another day. I've got an old example of one, and they have been in existence from the 19th century. They've been experimented with, and they are quite expensive, but they allow people to really enjoy their jewelry. So I think that the development of arthritic shanks are amazing. Thank you for bringing that up, Crystal Kelly. I see the question from Jagar about a mandrel. So mandrels are great for sizing rings, to tell you what the size of the ring is going to be and how it's going to fit, because it will not go further than where it could go, as the mandrel is usually metal or wood, and so very, very solid, whereas fingers are more pliable. So a ring like this will fit on the mandrel and give me a size to understand how it's going to fit on the finger. So you can trust a mandrel to check the size of a ring. Great questions. So it is a channel set tension set because of the way the pressure is on the side of them. So they're both correct, Delia. Great call out. All right. So my next tip for ring sizing is to make them smaller without having to take them into your jeweler at all. And that is using silicone sizers. And these are essentially coils of silicone that can be wrapped around the shank. And they come in usually like a 4 or a 6 pack. You can get them on Amazon for less than $10. And you can wrap them around. They come in different sizes. This allows you to slide it onto your finger, and it's almost as though another layer of metal has been added, and they don't damage the ring, and you cut them to size. So basically you coil it around the ring until it is patting it enough so that it fits your finger, and then you snip off the end. And that is something that I've done in the past with some of my larger cocktail rings. In the winter, fingers tend to shrink, so it works really well to have some of those silicone sizers to make sure that they stay sitting upright on the finger. Jewelry junkie, I love that. You've got a hot glue gun. That would absolutely work as well. I think it's probably very similar. And then my next tip on rings are all about modeling. So I'm going to take you through an example of how I modeled a ring before I bought it, because I wanted to understand exactly how it was going to fit me. So let's walk through this. There was a ring that I saw on Etsy, and this is the ring here, and it was quite a large cocktail ring. But as we all know, sometimes we experience shrinkage when a ring actually arrives and we unpackage it. So I like to take a look very carefully at the measurements that are provided and then draw it out on a piece of paper so that I know what it's going to look like. And I even take it a couple steps further. So these were the seller's pictures. Looks pretty good on the hand, but I have no idea what it's going to look like on my hand. And so here's the activity. You need a Sharpie, some scissors, a small piece of paper, notepad, and a ruler. And what you do is you simply begin to plot out on a piece of paper exactly what the sizes are. So in this case, the stone was meant to be 0.6 carats, and that was 5.5 millimeters across. And so what I did was I measured just 5 because I always like to be pleasantly surprised and not disappointed. It's a little bit sloppy, but it worked. Then I draw a circle around that. They also provided details saying that the ring from top to bottom and side to side was 17 millimeters. So after centering that first stone, what I did was draw dots from the north, south, east, and west for 17 millimeters. And then I roughly connected them and added a shank, as you can see, that makeshift kind of shank. And from there, I cut out my ring. So this is a bit of a pseudo ring. And the beauty of this is that you can then take your little pseudo ring and you can wrap it around your finger, whichever finger you like. Now, this is really to understand what kind of finger presence it is going to have, and compare what it will look like. And so I took this one step further, and I actually placed it on top of another diamond ring that I had, which had a 0.6 carat, in order to understand what it was going to look like. And I put it on my finger, which looked like this. So this was able to give me an idea of how the ring was going to fit. And I really encourage you to do this if you are ever buying something that is, meant to be heirloom quality, something you want in your family, or if you want to see how it's going to play with other rings on your hand. And then when the ring arrived, there we have, side by side. I always like to compare how close was my handiwork, and I would say it was not too bad. So this gave me great confidence in knowing that the ring that I was buying was actually going to be a good match for what I expected. And I've done that in the past for pendants as well. Anything that I'm not sure, is it going to be big enough? Is it going to have the presence that I want it to? And if it costs, more than a couple $100, I like to be really, really sure. I hate returns and don't do them. So I'm going to be sure from the get-go before I buy. And that is my probably top tip. If you're not sure how something's going to look for you, or if you're going to be satisfied with the size, whether it's earrings, a necklace, bracelet, any piece at all, just draw it out. Do the best that you can. You don't have to be the perfect artist, but it can go a long way to helping you make sure that you're going to be satisfied. So I hope that tip was helpful. Now, I do want to talk just briefly about something I call zooming in. And this is really important when it comes to buying jewelry, especially diamonds or other stones, or anything that has a lot of small pieces, maybe they're seed pearls. When you're buying online, you have the benefit of spending as much time as you want with the piece. so that you can make sure that all components are there. And so what I like to do is really zoom in on different platforms, whether it's Etsy or Ruby Lane, eBay. If it's a platform that doesn't allow me to zoom in enough, what I will do is I will take a screenshot and then I will paste that and enlarge it so that I can get in. And I want to share why this matters. Hi, Ray. Thank you so much. This matters because if you are buying something like maybe a diamond that could have an inclusion, you want to be able to see what it's going to look like. So I've got two examples saved on gem.app that we're going to pull up right now so that you can see exactly where this can be helpful. And let's go back to my saved examples. So this ring, it is properly called out as being an I3 diamond. And that means that it is going to be heavily included. But when you look at it, you may not realize right away that there's an inclusion right here. So it is always worthwhile to take the time to zoom in and to understand. And we'll do a full presentation on diamonds and clarity another day. That is one of the ones that I'm working on. But you want to be able to see this level of detail. Same as though if you were looking at an antique piece with a lot of seed pearls, I will actually go in and count each and every one and make sure that I've got a good understanding. So always think about zooming in. From here, I would even go all the way into eBay, and here you can see it even more clearly. So not only is there that black carbon spot, there are some other sort of naturals in there too. You can see those inclusions. And looking at it from different angles will show you whether they reach the surface or how noticeable they're going to be. And really the goal of this is to make sure that you have all the information up front to avoid disappointment. And as you can see at different angles, the black carbon spot is more and less noticeable, and this will impact the color of the diamond as well. Let's go back to gem.app. Here is another example. So this one I wanted to show you. We're not going to go to the eBay listing. I'm not trying to call the seller out, but this is quite expensive for a pair of diamond earrings that are under a carat that are so included. So they're calling these I3, but as you can see, these studs are so included that I would maybe call them salt and pepper. Like they're truly, truly very included. So this price is quite steep compared to what you can find similar diamond earrings for. So always zoom in when you can, and it's going to help you see the best information that you can. Really, Crystal Kelly, the mouse over magnification is not working on touchpads. Well, that is disappointing to hear. I'm going to try it right now for fun. So on my other screen, I tried it. It is a little bit laggy, which isn't the most helpful thing because you really want it to be responsive. So when in doubt, grab a screenshot, paste it into whatever paint app you might like to use, and then you'll be able to zoom in at your leisure. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, so it is now time to do the draw for our mug. And so I invite you all to get that hashtag all caps win in so that you can enter the giveaway. It's the only way to get one of these mugs is to be drawn for it. 20 ounces, shipping is on me. We'll give everyone just a couple seconds to get entered. I'm going to head back to the comments and see if I've missed anything. Yes, I don't love touchpads personally. I've got one on my laptop and I have a little nubbin, but I also have a mouse, and the mouse gives me so much more control. Please make sure you have a hashtag in front of that antique agenda. Hashtag win all caps, and we are going to do the draw. And thank you all so much for being here. I've got a couple in the works, as you know. So we've got the Imperial Russian showcase, which we're going to do very, very soon. It will cover history as well as jewelry, and it is fascinating, I promise. We also have antique registration marks that I'll be talking about very soon. So prior to the patent system that we know and love today, there was a very different registration format, and I will share examples and how to read those. Ray, please make sure you put win in all caps so that you are entered. And we've got a very interesting series of brooches that are sisters and yet perhaps made by different makers that we're going to look at, as well as diamonds and filigree jewelry. So all sorts of things are going to be coming up in the next couple of months. And our next live will be 2 weeks from today. Awesome. You got your all caps in. I'm going to share my screen so that we can choose the winner. We will stop the banner now. And I will present this screen. Perfect. We've got 19 entries today. Let's make sure that you can all see this. And so we're going to count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's draw. Good luck, everybody. Who will win today? And it's Ray. Congratulations. All right. Ray, please reach out to me and send me your shipping address so that I can get your prize sent to you. And I cover shipping and everything. I just need your address so that I can get this your way. Congratulations. All right. We have some time now to do a little bit of virtual shopping. Is there anything that you would like me to look for today? I do want to share just a couple of bracelets and how they could potentially be sized as examples as well. So please do let me know in the meantime, but I will share gem.app again. Here we go. Okay, so in terms of bracelets and whether they can be sized, in this example, this is a kind of bracelet that lends itself really well to simply having a link removed if you need to make it smaller, or you could add some more hoops if you wanted to make it bigger. So when I'm shopping, if I come across something like this and I fall in love with it, this is the type of thing that is a super easy fix. Really, all you need is a pair of pliers and then some hoops, which you can likely find readily online. So that is a simple fix. Now, in terms of toggle closures, these also lend themselves really well to having extra links added if you need to make it longer. So not only can you remove a link, but you can add some additional links if you want to make it longer as well. So again, in terms of bracelets, these are very simple fixes. Here is another example of something that would be simple to swap out, both shorter and longer, anything that is a chain link. For these, again, it looks like these loops would be simple to open up. And if you simply wanted to extend it by adding more little loops, this guy would be very easy. And then I also popped this in here as an example of something that you wouldn't want to size, but you probably wouldn't need to either. So what I love about this style of ring is that it actually is very forgiving in how it fits. So usually this will fit many finger sizes. They say on average, most women's finger sizes are a size 7. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I mean, I have a handful of a variety of sizes from 4.5 all the way up to an 8. So it's amazing how random it is. Ray, congrats. If you can email me at sundaybaubles@gmail.com, I will get you all set up. Awesome. All right. If there's no specific shopping requests, then we may call it a day and let everybody enjoy this fall Sunday. Did anybody catch the eclipse? I'm curious. I did not go out and look at it because I was not fully prepared. Hey, Teresa, great to see you. What do I look for in a quality piece of amber? That's a great question. Okay, so this is a very interesting topic because a lot of people say that they want a lot of trap material or spangles, but sometimes the spangles in amber can be evidence of some kind of heat treatment. So first off, in terms of quality amber, you want something that hasn't been reconstituted. So you want a natural piece, and it can be polished or cut, but ideally not made of many pieces that have been kind of cemented or melted back together. Amber itself is older than copal, and copal is a little bit less expensive. They're very similar, but copal is a little bit more resiny. There are some really good guides online, so I can make note of this and we can share some more detail. Now, I do, like you, like a lot of stuff in my amber, but I like it to be natural. So this is where it's important to understand, like, how can you tell? And it's tricky. Usually it is not very symmetrical, so it's going to be very random that the pieces are inside, and there's pretty good videos on that. So I'm going to put that into a community tab post, making note of it, so that hopefully it can help find some good quality amber. And of course, with amber, it's fascinating because personal taste plays a lot in what you're going to gravitate towards. I really love like butterscotch amber or egg yolk amber with some swirls and a little bit of clarity. Of course, those are hard to find and not inexpensive. I also really love, everything from the very amber color, almost root beer color or reddish color, to a lighter honey color too. They all have different values. And green, my understanding is that green amber is almost always treated to get that green color. It is still natural, but it has been treated as well. So we'll do a bit of a deep dive of this in the future, but I will post some links that are helpful. And then for reconstituted, black light can actually help you determine, like, is it natural amber and how much reconstitution is there? Because it shouldn't look like a puzzle piece that's been sort of put back together. That is generally what reconstituted can look like as well. Awesome. We will make sure that we cover amber in an upcoming live. Thank you all so much for being here today. If there is something that you would like me to cover, please do send me an email at sundaebaubles@gmail.com. And if there's also something in particular that you would like me to hunt for, if you give me heads up notice, I am happy to also look for it. Or if you want me just to take a look and send you links privately for something that I think might be of interest or a good value, I'm happy to do that too. So as always, please get in touch if there's anything that I can do. It is a pleasure to be part of this jewelry community with all of you, and I look forward to our next live. I'll be posting in the community, a sneak peek on the Russian Imperial, and some notes on amber and a few other things as promised today. It was great to see you all. My pleasure, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Take care, everybody.